I was 18 at the time, and it was the beginning of summer. I was off from school and didn't have a job, so most of my time was spent inside, playing video games, watching YouTube or TV, or just relaxing. When this happened, my parents were out of town for a few days, leaving me alone in the house. That was pretty normal and never a big deal. Sometimes I'd invite friends over or something, but that night, I was just enjoying the peace and quiet. I was watching a rerun of one of my favorite shows on Netflix while scrolling through my phone. It was late. I don't remember the exact time, maybe around 11 or 12, when there was a knock at the front door. I paused the TV and went to see who it was. At first, it didn't even register how late it was. I almost opened the door without thinking, but something made me hesitate. I looked through the peephole and saw two men. They were wearing similar clothes and just standing there, waiting for me to answer. I stood still, thinking about whether I should say something, maybe ask what they wanted. But instead, I stayed quiet and watched. Then one of them called out,
"Hello! We're here to speak with Mr. and Mrs. Ian."
"That's my parents." Well, I changed the name for privacy. I was confused, but still didn't respond. It was way too late for any kind of visit, even if it was important. After about a minute, the men looked at each other, said something quietly, and walked off the porch. The outdoor lights were off, so I couldn't see where they went. I never saw any headlights or a car pull up either, which made me wonder, had they walked here? That just made it feel even weirder. I went back to the couch, but left the TV on pause so I could listen. It only took a few minutes before I heard footsteps again. They were back. They went up to the porch, but this time they didn't knock. Instead, they started walking around to the side of the house. I got up and ran to the back window. I saw them open the fence gate and enter the backyard. I ducked down to avoid being seen, but I could hear them moving toward the back door. They started talking, and then I heard them messing with the door handle. That was my cue. I grabbed my phone and slipped into the garage, hiding as I called the police. I told them there might be a break-in happening. Not even a minute later, I heard a loud pop, a sound that shook the house. The back door had been forced open. I heard their footsteps inside, moving through the house. Then I heard them go upstairs, toward the bedrooms. A door opened, then closed. And after that, silence. I sat there in the garage, frozen, for what felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life, waiting for the police to arrive. Finally, I heard sirens. The moment they pulled up, I heard footsteps upstairs again, followed by the two men arguing. A few officers entered through the back door and rushed upstairs, while another found me in the garage and led me outside. The men didn't resist arrest, but they also didn't say a word. Not about why they were there or what they were planning. Weeks went by, but the only charge they could pin on them was breaking and entering. It still scares me. It seemed like they were looking for my parents, like they were going to wait upstairs for them to come home. Sometimes I wonder if I should have spoken up, if showing myself would have stopped it all from happening. But something tells me they still would have broken in. And I don't want to think about what they would have done if they had found me instead. I live on the outskirts of a mid-sized town in Wyoming. The whole reason I live here is because owning a huge plot of land isn't as impossible of a task as it can be in most other states. My house is small, but it was cozy enough for living alone. This happened 4 years ago, in 2019. It was spring, and we were going through a month of pouring rain almost every single day. It was a Sunday, and I was home from work, spending the day watching TV and resting. Sometime around 6 or 7, I got an unexpected knock at my door. I barely heard it through the rain, and when I answered the door, I was even more surprised to see it was some random guy, not a mailman or anything of the sorts. Someone coming all the way out onto my property without notice was very unusual, being that it was far out of the way. "How can I help you?" I said. The guy, looking to be in his late 20s, said he'd been camping out in the woods nearby and had gotten into some trouble and needed a place to stay for the night. With the location of my house, if he wasn't lying, then showing up at my doorstep would make sense, because I was the closest place within the woods by at least 5 or 6 miles. It was also pouring out, which made me feel even worse for him, but it still didn't take away from the possible danger of letting a stranger into my home. I offered him a phone call to get a ride into town, but the guy denied my offer. After bluntly saying he couldn't stay here, the guy walked off. I watched him go down the dirt road a little ways, then he veered off and walked into the woods. As odd as that was, I didn't have it on my mind for more than a few minutes before I was back to watching TV. I didn't check the time very often, but it had to be at least 2 hours later and well into the night when I saw an orange glare coming from the window by my backyard. I got up and moved the curtain. Through the rain and fog, I saw a campfire, right in the middle of the woods outside my house. It was small, flickering under a large tree, as the rain poured down on it. Standing next to it, there was the outline of a figure holding something. I couldn't tell, though, if he was facing my house or into the woods. After a moment, I closed the curtains and picked up my phone, calling the police to let them know about this person outside my house. I knew it would probably take an hour for them to get here, and whoever was out there wasn't doing me any harm, but at the very least, I wanted them away from my house before I went to bed. Once I got off the phone with the officer, I checked the window again. The fire was still burning lightly, but the figure wasn't there. Then I heard footsteps coming toward the house. I ran to the other window and caught sight of him walking past with a hunting rifle in his hand, before he turned the corner and went to the front door. He banged on it a few times, then it went quiet. I grabbed my self-defense handgun from the hallway closet and hid around the wall, still trying to process the situation I was in. He hit the door again. This time, I could tell it was with the stock of his rifle, nearly breaking a panel out of the door. In this moment, I could only think that I had to try to deter him immediately, before it became life or death for one of us. I shot around toward the edge of the doorframe, deafening myself for a second as the shot rang through the house. When my hearing came back, all I heard was the rain pouring down. No footsteps, banging, or yelling. I gathered up the courage after 5 minutes of no sounds and looked out the peephole, seeing an empty porch. Outside in the yard were clear footprints going away from the house. He must have run right after the shot. During the couple of seconds I couldn't hear. Police did a thorough search and found some strange details out by where the campfire was. They found a duffel bag with evidence of it having been buried nearby and likely dug up just hours before the attack. What they told me is that it was most likely a burglary kit, or possibly even a murder kit, that was planted in advance with the intent to be dug up and used later on. This means whoever attacked me had planned it, and had been right outside my house at least once before that night. Why he attacked me specifically is not known, and who and where he is currently is still no closer to being figured out than it was 4 years ago. I still live in the same house, and worry every day that he might come back.